Our second reader is Jason Gray. Jason Gray is the author of Radiation King, winner of the 2018 Idaho Prize for Poetry, and Photographing Eden, winner of the 2008 Hollis Summers Prize. He has also published two chapbooks, How to Paint the Savior Dead and Adam and Eve Go to the Zoo. His poems have appeared in Poetry, the American Poetry Review, the Kenyon Review, Literary Imagination, Poetry Ireland Review, and many other places. He's also reviewed poetry, nonfiction, and fiction for the Southern Review, the Missouri Review, Shenandoah, the Journal, and elsewhere. By day, he works as an editor for Duke University's Nicholas Institute for Environmental Policy Solutions. Please join me in welcoming Jason Gray.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ross and Bull City Press for having me, and for Meddlesome for putting this together. This is awesome. A little odd, but awesome. I am very glad to be virtually with all of you. I have family upstairs. I expect to hear some clapping. And maybe a dog that might, well, a dog that maybe will come down and visit. We'll see. So thank you again. I'm going to read some poems from Radiation King. That's a lovely cover by Lost Horse Press. And end with a brand new poem. So thank you again, and here we go. Relativity. He took the watch apart. The snowflake gears, too delicate for hands his size, bend and entangle on the table. If only the metal would melt, then maybe so would time. The leather band has faded to a pale urine. The watch had been his father's, worn at the bulge. The gears malfunctioned when he hurled the watch to slow time down. It only stopped. There are just so many revolutions. Telomeres clip and age us, but death is not a rabbit pulled from your coat on a crowded subway. The next poem is called Radioactive Shadow, and it takes place in Southern California, near the San Onofre nuclear generating station. Grew up in the 80s near nuclear power plants, and also with the threat of, the end of the Cold War, and had those two different ideas of nuclear power in my head as a little kid, and finally started writing about them with this book. Radioactive Shadow. The twin Duomos rose along the ocean. Dad went to work at songs. The pellets of uranium kept cool by sea, bombed by neutrons. This was my inheritance, the generous split like Jesus's loaves. It fed us, clothed us, sheltered us under the brightness of its shadow. The lights came on each night. Each night I prayed to wake before I died, prayed the concrete hold intact its universe of broken atoms. As this is Earth, the beautiful explodes and explodes, each arc of light an almost flood of dust, blessed enough to be so cursed. I'm going to read a poem called Prussian Blue. If you don't know, that is a pigment, and paint pigment that in the early part of this century they discovered could be used as a cure for radiation poisoning. Its chemical compounds would soak up radioactive cesium in the body if taken in. So I was just fascinated with the idea that how art could actually be something that healed one. And in our time of plague, it seemed like an appropriate thing to read. Prussian Blue. The doctors give us dust masks now that the world is an exploded mine. We take the pills and flush our blood with the color of the Virgin Mary. Our bruised knees could not provide such intercession. The fine art of chemistry consumed the heaviness within and made our bowels shit blue. It turned midnight and the cold did not frighten us enough. The good Christ in his tomb are those in the fallout shelters, and the airlock hatch spun and opened and no one was gone. We lucky few remaining take our turn at the wheel. We have forestalled the hour of our death, but we have not been saved. This poem is called Abel Archers. It gets its name from a war game that happened in 1983 that almost set off World War III. So something light. It has a subtitle from Pope Innocent II's Second Lateran Council, the forbidding of distance weapons, namely crossbows and longbows. Attacking from afar is, if not unholy, at least unfair. Barbed arrows launched from bows, cowgut vibrato harmony behind, are not the way to kill a Christian. Face to face, the sword, the axe, a dagger from a sleeve. The Vatican knew the way to mass murder was through the sky, and so sealed it to all but the Holy Spirit, birds, and saints ascending. Papal bullets never last. Planning for disaster, ranks of archers in the rear guard wait for the slightest twitch of the sun on metal from the other side. Or say, some restless horses stamp their ironclad knights a little forward, like the curtain billowing. Is that enough to raise the stakes for a volley? The captain's sword swipes down like a second hand. And does it matter if the missiles come arcing, tipped with fire? Some of you may be familiar with the story of the Radium Girls, young women who were painted watch dials and other things with radioactive paint so they would glow in the dark in the early part of the 20th century. There's actually a movie coming out about it, based on a pretty well-known book that came out a few years ago. I was very curious about thinking about, I mean, it's a terrible story, what happened to these girls. And I was thinking about, well, who did the hiring, who did this hiring, and who did not tell them information that they actually knew. And so I wrote a persona poem in his voice. U.S. Radium's finest personnel man to the new recruits. U.S. Radium needs you girls for good pay factory work. This is the future, girls, the age of radiation. You'll make all of America's wristwatch dials glow with Undark, this company's trademark paint, created from a brand new element. A lady like yourselves discovered it over in France. Now, isn't that something? They gave her the Nobel Prize, honest to God. It isn't dangerous. Give it a taste. A lick of the brush won't hurt you, and it'll make a finer point. Try a little dab on your nails, perhaps your teeth too, to entice a young man in the dark of the picture show. The lights he didn't even know were there. Those aprons all the men are wearing, that's just to keep the paint off their clothes when they mix it up in the warehouse. We men are the real vain creatures, aren't we, girls? Now take your places and get to work. Smile, girls, and glow in the dark for me. The book has a couple of sequences in it, one of which is called Color as an Event, and it goes through white, then the Newtonian Roy G. Biv spectrum to black. I was very interested in the discovery of pigments as how they came to be, and ended up writing poems that started out from that, but sort of became something else. But I'm just going to read a couple of those. White. The whitest white is made by grinding bones of unblessed children. It will keep no light. The paint is toxic for 1,000 years, but that is not the reason it's called blight. Our binding agent is a secret. In-house, its name is ghost. There is no white. Orange. My children love the taste of orange. They like it flooding chins, the orange juice dripping, stickling, tickling. Orange to flavor chocolate candy, orange to scent their mother's hair. The orange crayon is just a stub. They orange color everything they see orange. Their teachers stock special orange chalk for them. They concentrate on orange problems better. Take one orange away from a crate and orange, how many do you have? The orange walls of their room are orange and orange. The neighbors call them sunrise orange and sunset orange. There would be no orange living without their love, and orange, we do what love requires, orange. One of the other series is called Atoms, and it came about similar to what Aaron was saying. I was taking part in writing a poem a day for a month. And so I decided to write little tiny poems because it would be easier about the elements. I was fascinated by them. So I was looking at what the characteristics of the elements were sort of one by one and starting from there. And they became about other things, at least I hope. And so I'll just, again, read a few of those. You have to start somewhere, a nearly empty ball that everyone fetches. The letters led to letters, but every diamond burned into poisonous air and returned to its sender. So much of the sky is useless. A dolphin dives into the atmosphere to see the cloud wrecks. The little flames of foxes spied us from the dunes. I held my breath in case you needed it. Shells are filling up the beach, but it still looks empty. Air hidden in our bones like tiny confessional booths. There's only so much of you. The phonograph needle mined the groove, revealing what little we could say for ourselves. Our satellites we swaddled in gorgeous foil. We try to keep them warm at night. Here is half of me. Here is another half for you until the earth has ended. Let us make the largest fire from our smallest parts. I'm going to read just one more from this book. It's the first poem in the book. It's called Project Faultless. The title comes from an atomic test that took place in Nevada, in a northern part of Nevada. The tests up until then had occurred just north of Las Vegas. And when they went off, they shook the casinos in Vegas. And of probably the many people that complained about that, the one that got heard was Howard Hughes, who used to call up President Johnson, I guess, and complain to him. So they tried to find a new spot. It was a spectacular failure. Project Faultless. What hurt to set a little fire here? Hot Creek Valley was Mars to most of the world. This was a test to see if the ground could hold a little bomb in its belly before we gave it a greater tonnage to bear. The ground could not. Faults opened and the steel bomb tube sunk flush with the dirt, stove-piped 9 feet above the earth. This was the landscape we imagined when we imagined the world post-apocalypse. Barren, cracked, a shell that magma would in time subsume. Atoms really are perfection, tiny movers, brilliant gods, or force of evolution, if you prefer. We dreamed the science, pulled apart the facts, made the future a fiction we'd never live. Can you blame us for our triumphs? Soon enough, we'll be irradiated ghosts hiding in abandoned silver mines or narrating from the bunkers. We wanted to be generous. We moved the test back south. A casino shakes and maybe a sucker gets lucky if the wheel jumps a little. 235, 226, black, then red, stack, unstack. Then a crashing of chips the dealer sweeps away. So I'm going to end, like I said, with one brand new poem. So we'll see. First time it's been read, and we'll see how it goes. The moving walkway is coming to an end. The moving walkway seemed like a good idea, rushing to make the plane, but there's a crush of people loafing at their ease. A flare of rage. This is a ride I can't get off. The brotherhood of man is a frat house, locking plebes in a trunk with a fifth of Jack until they're dead. Yes, I'm a misanthrope, but humans are killing me, and you as well. The point tipped on a Tuesday afternoon several years ago. An ordinary smokestack blew another ring into the air. It kept proposing. We kept saying yes. How old-fashioned of us to be charmed by our abuser. Merrily we stroll along this 40,000 kilowatt per year cycle to a sieve of metal teeth. The terminal hall windows are covered in art and owl silhouettes. But there's a sparrow looking for an exit or a bite of Cinnabon. The paper said 3 billion birds are gone. How long until the silhouettes haunt us? Archaeological. This society scared its birds away. The rubber handhold squeals and sounds almost like a seagull. Nothing lines a grave better than hope. We must abandon Venice, Miami, New Orleans now, before emergency makes the coasts tableau vivants of Bosch. The water lapping at your toes is warm and getting warmer. Butter yourself up. We're all stars now, and there's not enough gravity for every one of us. The sign warned us the end would be abrupt. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Jason, wow, thank you. That was absolutely amazing. I got to
Thank
admit,
you.
I have been playing
Thanks.
Fallout 4 just recently.
Ah,
One of the
nice.
poems from Radiation King hit too close to where.
Yeah, well, one of the namesakes from the book, as you probably recognize, yeah.
Yep. Friends, I am going to put a link into our group chat, and I want you all to follow it because that is where you can buy Radiation King. When you buy, you're buying it directly from Jason. I dare say that he would even be willing to sign it
Oh,
for
of
you
course. I will
before he
sign and
ships it
stamp
to
them.
you. And because he is a good dude, he is not even charging shipping. So I hope you'll go and check that out. Friends, the Bull City Press Presents is going to be back with Meddlesome next month, maybe in person, maybe online. We're not really sure. And if you are a regular at our series out in Hillsborough, unfortunately, our April 4th reading in Hillsborough is going to be postponed. So check back with us on April 11th. We'll have poetry from Emily Menzel, Destiny Hemphill, and Alan King, and poetry and prose from Leslie Wheeler. So we're really excited about that. We hope to see all of y'all either here in Zoom or there in Durham at the OK All Right Theater. And now I want to pass it off to our amazing hosts at Meddlesome because now it's time for Golden Age.
Hey, Russ. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aaron and Jason. We're going to keep Jason with us. Aaron, I know that you're like at a party and everything, but if there's a way that people can find you online, drop it into the chat so people can follow up with you. Yeah, so normally, to give everyone, those who don't know, so typically what we do is every 2 weeks, we do a show called Golden Age, where we invite a different artist. We've had a lot of musicians, we've had dancers, we've had visual artists, photographers, and thanks to Ross, lately we've had a lot of writers, which is our pleasure. And so we usually get someone from the Bull City Press reading to be our special guest, and they introduce themselves through their art, and then we interview them and do improv based on that. Thus far, given that the pandemic started roughly 2 days ago, we have not figured out the improv portion just yet, but we are going to keep Jason around just for a second and have just a fun conversation with him. And let me get the cast of Golden Age to come on. If you guys want to come on, I'm going to unmute you and maybe just introduce yourselves. Let's see.
Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Agapor.
Hi, I'm Brandon Holmes.
Feels so weirdly formal. Hi, I'm at work.
Hi, I'm Jake Bartlett.
Hi, I'm Lauren, and I don't have a cool background.
Well, Lauren, you still can't get a cool background?
No, so I'm on my laptop this time, and I tried to look, and I need to download some or something. I don't know. I'm gonna text y'all.
I'm gonna see if my background does the same thing it always does.
Okay.
It does.
I'm so jealous right now. Like.
Oh yeah, Brandon, why is your face actually green screen?
I'm not sure. I might be a vampire. Like, I don't know why I don't show up on this screen.
Yeah.
I'll stop that because it's distracting.
Hold on. Jake, where are you?
I am in future Miami.
Whoa.
Or Andrew, are you really in a library, or did you just choose?
Yeah, this is my real dumb office. I can get a cool background though.
Yeah, it's cool.
Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got. Wow.
Ooh.
I am so jealous. I don't know why.
Cool. Well, we made sort of a cast plan earlier that a few of us are going to talk to Jason, and then we're going to get Jason to share another poem or two. So if you're part of the first crew, stay on, and if you're not, get off. Or at least mute yourselves. You can stay on, just mute yourself. And if you have questions for Jason based on his reading, just jump into the chat, and we'll be looking at that.
Oh, yeah.
Jason, thank you for doing this dystopian thing with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great. Yeah, this is really fun. I'm glad to be here. So yeah, I guess I'll read two more new ones, and hopefully they're a little lighter, maybe.
I was gonna say, I think that we.
Or do you want to ask questions first? That's fine.
Well, I was just gonna ask. It seems like we chose the right author for
Yeah.
for a call-out situation.
The end of days here. Yeah. It's dark times.
What makes you interested in that?
I mean, yeah, part of it was just, sort of the time period I grew up, but also I just have always been fascinated with physics, especially, quantum physics and atomic physics, and was reading a lot about it. Around the time that my first book came out, I was reading a lot about this, and then and it sort of became fodder for new poems, and then kind of, sort of became more and more interested in it, and it just sort of developed from there, sort of combining some biography with, just my interest in the subject. So the book is sort of about the sort of radiation in general. I mean, electromagnetic spectrum with, with visible light, but all kinds of, gamma rays and X-rays and things too, so it covers that. But yeah, and I'm fascinated by, that possible end, way we could do away with ourselves, and movies and books that are on that subject, and that, sort of explore that kind of future. So I got interested in sort of writing a kind of science fiction poem, like a future, or sometimes I would think, I was like, if I was living 50 years from now and thinking about the past, like what kind of poems might I have written? And so there's some of that going on in there.
Yeah.
So,
You go.
yeah. How do you feel now? With this happening, does it feel like weirdly exciting, like we are in this sort of...
It doesn't feel exciting. It's more of a drag.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I mean, there's, part of me is like, yeah, I knew this was coming, of course.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, I see what you mean. And yeah, I mean, I suppose there is that sort of excitement about, like, well, what would it be like if, something, really crazy, and large happened as sort of we're starting to live in. And
Yeah.
of course, hopefully it, de-escalates quickly. But yeah, no, I mean, there's a little bit of that in there. Sure. Sort of part of me is very interested in that. So of course I'm like, oh, this is maybe what it's at least as I was thinking, it's like, this is probably just a dry run for what is really going to happen in a couple of years. It's going to be really terrible. But
Yeah.
so, get prepared. Sorry.
I had I had the thought the other day that, like, 90% of the world is thinking about not touching their face.
Mhm.
And it's this weirdly like communal
Right, exactly.
experiencing
Yeah,
we're
right.
having.
Everybody
Yeah.
is isolated together.
Yeah, like us.
We're all in
right
our
now.
own basements, but doing it at the same time. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. Where were you sort of in your life, or like what were you doing when you wrote the Fault Line poems?
Well, a lot of them took a long time. I mean, the book itself was probably, from the earliest poem to the last one was written over like an 8-year period. So I was in lots of places: Columbus, Ohio, Madison, Wisconsin, Alexandria, Virginia. By the time the book was sort of wrapped up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you written anything now that we are in a quarantine, or what's the process like?
Not really, no. I haven't really written. Well, I started to work on some stuff. So I went to there's a very large creative writing conference, the AWP conference, that happened in San Antonio last week. That actually went ahead. It was not canceled, much to many people's disagreement, and I did go. So I started working on stuff there, just thinking about what was happening at the time and stuff. But I don't really ever write. I don't really write very contemporary topical things. Like I'm not necessarily going to write a coronavirus poem, at least not today. I might 10 years from now, but not today. I usually approach things via like history, or one time. I mean, that's why the Abel Archers poem that I read earlier was it started out from thinking about a pope's decrees, and what warfare was like in the 12th century. Like you couldn't shoot it. It was not ethical to shoot somebody with a crossbow, from a distance. And it was like, well, what's our crossbow now? Well, nuclear ICBMs, kind of thing. And like, so that's how I approach that kind of thing. Yeah,
more Howard Hughes than Shakira.
Yeah. But 20 years from now, I'll probably write about Shakira. I don't know,
Yeah. Were you always a history nerd?
I mean, yeah, I don't know that I was so much into it that I would go that far. But yeah, I always loved it, science, history, all that stuff. I mean, I was a big reader, still am, but as a kid, so I read a lot of stuff and from all kinds of things. So yeah, mythology too. I mean, especially my first book has a lot to do with mythology in various ways. So that was my background. That's what I knew, so I was able to pull on that. As a basis for poetry, like to, as a starting point for a lot of poems, and then going from there, so that's the kind of thing that it's the way I sort of work, I guess.
Did you study science in school? It sounds like you had a
I
lot
was
of
an
knowledge.
environmental studies minor, actually. So I did a little of that. I did a lot. I mean, I did a lot of advanced science classes, like when I was in high school and stuff like that. I think by the time I got to college, I was pretty into like, I want to be a writer. I'm going to study literature. So I kind of put a little bit of that aside. Only to think a few years later, like, oh, I wish I would have done it more, just because I would have known more and stuff. But I got tired for a while. I was tired of math. I didn't need to do any more of that for a while. So.
Can we get, if anyone's out there listening, if you want to shout out your minors in the chat, that could be fun.
Yes, to our minors. Almost.
This is a BYOB situation. I'm drinking off seltzer from Harris Teeter.
Just not showing up from the green screen.
I've got Josh Rosé. This is the last of it.
Oh.
Ugh.
Uh-oh.
I'm really sad.
I have to go out and brave the crowds.
I think so. I'll just like.
Jake, are you drinking that nice dog there?
Yeah. She's so sweet. I could just drink her right up.
Aw.
Actually, I'm drinking water. And I would have it on screen, but it's over there.
Fine. Sure.
Shout out
Jen.
Shout out to sociology / White Claw, the best minor I've ever heard of. That's awesome.
My dog was maybe going to join me, but he decided not to. So.
Oh, alas.
Oh well.
Yeah. Well, did you get any pushback about wanting to become a writer? I know your parents are there with you upstairs, maybe.
Yeah. Did I push back to be a writer? Oh no, not at all. No, they're very supportive and continue to be. No, that was great. I was lucky, very lucky. They're always. Are they writers? What's that?
Are they writers?
No.
Yeah.
No. That's just not a family thing. But they were readers. They're readers, big readers, but not writers. Yeah.
My parents aren't comedians either.
No.
My parents think that they're very funny.
Yeah.
Does that count? Cool. Well, Jason, would you mind reading us something else?
Sure. It's not that new, but it's not collected anywhere. It's called County Fair. Today's the day the axle grease goes dry. I board the fairground rides on edge and hope like hell the safety harness holds when the power surge flips my cart around. All that keeps me from 9.81 meters per second squared are 30-year-old parts and labor, and the rider's collective will. What are the odds, I chant with every upward heaval, of the plunger's half-empty carriage, or when the atomizer clocks its top G-force? Jesus may be my safety bar, but still I wouldn't mind some evidence of bureaucratic oversight. I must be at least 4'6" and willing to pit superstition versus throwing caution to the wind. Contrapuntal back and forth. The Viking ship completely vertical. A sprinkle of loose change. What are the odds? Is luck the universe singling you out? I hit all 7 ducklings at the shoot 'em up and won the stuffed blue dinosaur that I clutched to my chest as the lift hill ratchets us to the inevitable, the bolt shears or the wire snaps, drop dive of the comet.
Thank you so much. That was great. No, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So so then I have questions about the county fair. So did you enjoy the county fair, going to the county fairs?
I do. I love it. Yeah, I do. It's, I love amusement parks too, but even the county fair, and it's potentially more dangerous.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, maybe that's part of it. I don't know. It doesn't really bother me. Like it doesn't, but a little bit of like, yeah, maybe they didn't put it together right this time, but
right.
Mostly I'm pretty okay with it. But yeah, I'd love it. I like the deep fried Snickers too. But I do like the rides. Yeah.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
What's the craziest? Have you ever won anything at a fair?
Oh, not really. No. Nothing like gigantic or anything. I've never won like a giant, 6-foot stuffed animal or something like that, or no.
What about speaking of animals, what's that bear? What's going on with that bear?
It's just a drawing, a print that I picked up somewhere of a grizzly bear, looking to.
Would you rather have a roller coaster bust under you or be eaten by a bear? What would be your favorite of those two?
Well, I gotta think the roller coaster is probably more fun up until the last minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then again, the bear is at least, a little more unusual, I think.
This is
a little more.
This is true.
But
play dead.
Yeah.
Oh, what about that on the other side? Is that?
That's my book. I just put it up there. Advertising. Better, here I'll just this is it closer.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Reverse, so, yeah.
Love that. So,
better than a blank wall behind me. I tried out the virtual things, but it didn't really look very good. So,
Don't feel bad. The virtual thing is not working for me either, apparently.
Oh, I like the aurora behind Mendelsohn and Ashley there. It's like
Yeah,
it's awesome.
that's so cool. So I feel like every time someone goes to the fair, or at least some point in our childhood, we always go home with the goldfish.
Oh, sure. I did that happen once.
Yeah.
Oh,
How
yeah.
long did your goldfish last?
Oh, maybe probably 2 weeks. Yeah. That was a school fair. I remember when I was probably in like second grade or something, first grade, second grade. Yeah.
Cool.
It may have happened for my brother too. I don't remember if he ever won one as well. Probably.
So in that poem, there's this, it's like that thing of your mind starts to go fast if it's you as the character. You know, the roller coaster starts to shake, and then you're thinking all these thoughts at lightning speed. Do you are you that way with day-to-day life? Do you like drill in and start to hyper focus on things?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's a lot of like, it's hard to, maybe not so much drilling in on one thing, but a lot of things. Like, you know, I don't sleep very well because I'm like, oh, I can't stop the brain, you know, from going from one thing to another. So, you know, yeah, there's a lot of that.
So what's the last like stupid thing you started thinking about?
Oh, I don't know. God. That I don't know. Well, that was probably just a song lyric or something at that point. I couldn't get out of my head, but you know, yeah, I don't know.
I was driving home today and I was thinking, should I put on the recirculate thing in my car because of the air? But I thought about it for so much longer than I actually took to hit the button.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
What about you, Lauren?
My random thought for the day was I normally go to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings to buy my vegetables. And so I was on my way there and I was like, oh no, someone coughed on my vegetables. But then I thought about it. I'll just clean them, but still, like, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, so that was my little thing. But let's see. So I really enjoyed the whole thing about playing the games at the fair and things like that. Did you go to the fair a lot as a child, or was it just that, you know, I love amusement parks and the way it correlates?
You're on TV, buddy.
And that question was for your dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we go a lot? No, not really. I mean, well, actually, we used to go to Disneyland a lot because I was living in Southern California. So we probably go there like every year. And the occasional other kind of fair or something. I used to go a lot, like, you know, as an adult, to like the Ohio State Fair and Wisconsin State Fair when I was living there and stuff like that. So, yeah.
So
that's where, I mean, the Ohio State Fair, these rides are straight, well, some of them I made up, but the Power Surge is straight out of the Ohio State Fair. I don't know if I made up the other one.
What's the Power Surge?
That was like I don't know what class of ride they call it, but you know, you're in a cart and it's like spinning you around, and you know, all the different parts are moving in different ways. I don't know exactly,
like
but at some point you're like hanging almost upside down and there's this tiny little terrible seatbelt holding you in kind of thing. So yeah.
Have you ever vomited in public?
No, I have a pretty good stomach, fortunately, in that case. Yeah. Yeah.
What a great question. Any last questions from you guys?
Sorry.
Good question. I have not. I am proud to say that I have not.
Like, that's great. Yeah.
Does anyone on the chat have a question for Jason? No, I see one shaking head. No. Jason, an either or from me, sociology or White Claw?
Sociology.
Okay, fine.
Sorry. Not a White Claw fan.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, that's it, you guys. I just want to say thank you so much to Jason and Aaron and Ross from Bull City Press. Ross, if you would drop the link to buy Jason's book again in the chat. That's what it's called. Is it chat? We are Golden Age. We are usually not online. We are figuring this out, as we all are in this pandemic, but we appreciate you joining for part of your Saturday night with us.
Yes.
Hopefully we'll do some more readings or comedy things. We don't know, but you can find us online at Facebook. We're at thisismeddlesome.com. You can find the schedule for when we do have live shows or classes running again. We're also on Twitter at Hello Meddlesome. Come find us online or find us in person when it's safe. And please, everyone, be safe. And thank you again. Bye, Jason, and bye, Jason's dog.
Bye-bye.